export on my computer, share screen, your seal binder of your submissions. Okay, I do know that our first and second students are here, so let's get started. All right. Me scroll through and see if you have any questions labeled here. How to calculate accurate spot elevations for the driveway. So let me try to take a glance and mark out things that I see immediately that are not in agreement with others. So the first thing that I see here, the driveway elevation here, because your 130 is over here, the driveway elevations in this place should be very close to 130. Okay, so that's the first thing. The next one, if you can let me know your driveway length, that'd be good. What's the 60? Okay. If it's about, no, let me mark it here. 60 feet, 645 plus 15. And then if is about 10% for the 45 foot, we are up 4.5, we get to 133.8. And then we have 0.75. Let me move it over and see if your calculation 134.8. So the 9.8% doesn't really agree with the calculation of 135.05. Let's see. Second, 129.3. We're adding 4.5. And then we're adding 0.75. So yeah, I think you're a little higher than what they have here. So the likelihood, the possible reason behind that could be for the 15 foot away from the entrance of the driveway, we didn't use the 5% to calculate that. That could be the possibility. So that's the other thing that we need to check on for the entrance, the driveway entering garage. Oh. Give me a. So, sorry, I read your drawing wrong. That's not the entrance of the driveway, but that one should not be higher than the entrance where you specified 133.8, right? Does that make sense? So, yes. Yes. 4.5 plus 0.75. So you have 134.55 here. Okay. Then if you did this calculation, it will get you to 134.55 at. Oh. Okay. Let me get back to the main room. Give me a second. How can I go back to the main room?
Let's try again. And something.
Seems that you're already recording.
Yeah, I've seen that now. Okay.
Okay, good.
All right. We are
back to my screen. Lost all my annotations, which is great. I'll mark it again. That one does not agree with the 130 contour. That one, the calculation seems reasonable. Well, elevation. The elevation is an elevation that would allow the driveway to be 10%, but it doesn't agree with your slope of 9.8% here, it's higher than what we would calculate. We did just calculate. The calculation gets you to about 134.55 for that entrance elevation. So I'm not saying that 133.8 is not correct. I'm just saying it doesn't agree with your 9.8% for the 45 foot of the second portion of the driveway. So now the next thing that we can see here is the garage FFE is actually equal to these entrance elevations because your car would not be able to jump one step up and get into your garage, right? So if you calculate your garage FFE to be 134.2, that should actually be these two elevations. And that will be closer to your 9.8% slope on the driveway, okay? Okay, so that's that. So if we now I see your house FFE is 134.2. What you can do, there's a 0.4 difference between the FFE and your building quarter. You could modify for it to be a 0.5 difference because according to the statement, the garage FFE can be 0.5 below your house FFE, right? Okay, that's I think what might be, the easier way to get this fixed systematically would be you keep that, you drop this by 0.5 to get your garage FFE and use that as your entrance elevation and then calculate your slope over here. That's one thing to make changes to this set of number as one step that you could start testing for your HPS, okay? So if you have 134.2 as your garage FFE, house FFE, my garage would be that. And based on the distance we currently have from your garage corner to your HPS, it could work. It could work. Something that we do need to make changes to would be, let's not make the swell turn 90 degrees because it's going to be hard for water to turn 90 degrees along this way. So you could round it up like this and say my HPS would be somewhere over here. You start from this point and then get down to your LPS, you get about 2.4%. What I'm trying to say is that if you have an HPS of that and a corner elevation of 133.7, the distance right now seems reasonable, seems to be able to make the slope from the corner of the garage to your HPS. You can try to keep that within the range of 2 to 5%. And our centerline length doesn't seem to have changed much. So your 2.4% of the centerline slope, it's going to be close to that number. It won't change much because of this change. The next thing that I would say is that you don't have to drag your swell all the way back to here because you can see the natural drainage is already directing water away from your building. So that means you could end your LPS somewhere over there. If we do that, our LPS would be slightly above 130. So you would have about 130.5. And because you can kind of see this length, it's similar to that length. If I have a 130.5 over here, if the other part of my FFE is 131.5 and I can still get above 2%, you could imagine this portion of the centerline slope, it's also going to be above 2%. Does that make sense? Because you have a larger V and you seem to have a very similar H for this portion. So very likely the slope will meet the criteria of above 2. So likely your centerline is going to work out because of that. So once you have all these, you can start connecting your contours, okay? So that's just my general observation for your draft over here. I know you have a specific question about how do we calculate the spots along the driveway. Let's zoom into that area and go through the steps for that calculation. Okay, so in order to calculate these spots, what's important? Is if we're calculating that spot, we need to know wherever the 130 connects to your driveway, we need to measure this distance. So that distance, I should use a double direction. So you need to measure from that spot to that spot. That is the horizontal spacing for 1 foot of vertical difference for your driveway slope. Does that make sense? And then what we measure is this distance. Using that distance and the slope that you calculated with the pink line, you would be able to know the vertical difference between that spot and your 129. That's how you calculate the spot elevations, measuring twice of the H. So let me try to explain it one more time. We need to know where exactly the 130 hits the curve. And this is location where 129 hits the curve. So measuring the horizontal distance between these two spots, that corresponds to the H for the 1 foot contour, V equals to 1 foot in vertical difference, okay? Using this, you'll be able to figure out the slope, right? You would be able to figure out the driveway slope. And once you have the slope, you would measure the other H, which is the H for between the 129 to the spot that you are calculating, which is this location. So measuring the pink line, that's your new H, and then use the H to multiply the slope that you just calculated based on the brown line. You would know the vertical differences between the driveway spot and your 129 contour. And that is how you calculate the spot right at the pink tick mark over here. It looks like your 129.3 is a very reasonable estimate for that one. So it should be around 129.3, okay? One other thing that I need to remind everybody is that when you are measuring the driveway length, what we need to find out is this length when it hits the spot that is connecting to the street. Does that make sense? Yeah. So let's not forget about that tick mark where the driveway, the size of the driveway hits the entrance of the road. Okay. Anything else? Good. Okay. All right. We'll move forward. Okay. Let's look at the questions first. Do we have to, no, we don't have to have the swell line away from the deck, but when we think about what we're actually designing, we're designing a backyard, right? The yard, the deck is where you have picnics, you do the sunbathe. If you are designing a pretty steep side slope for the swell, as soon as it jump off your deck, you might be in a pot of water when it rains pretty hard. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if you think about the function, you can put the swell center line in that location. It doesn't really matter where the relationship between the swell center line, the deck, it's not really directly related. But if you in the end, if you create a pretty deep ditch, then functionally, you would want that to be revised. Just because if I'm getting off my deck, if it's raining hard, the slope is pretty steep, there could be a pot of water if it at a big event. That's not a great design. Does it mean it's wrong? It's not wrong, it's just not really great. So in our exercise, we would not grade based on that. But if we think about what kind of space that we're creating, we should be mindful about, okay, that's where people get off and enter their backyard. We should try to avoid a steep side slope. And then, we can think about where to move it to avoid creating a pretty steep side slope. Okay? Okay, let's look at some of the calculations. We have 120.10. This does seem a little low. Seem a little low here. Seems a little low here, reasonable. It's going to be close to 129.90. We have 133. Maximum 8% seems reasonable. 2% of slope, 133.30. Okay, now we see we're again making the car jump for one step. So garage FFE needs to be the same as 133.30. And then we have the HPS equal to that one. House, good. Now we're marking out the center line, 131.70, 2%, good. The same thing, we don't need the LPS to wrap around to the south of the house. Otherwise, this draft is in a pretty good solution, in a pretty good place to be moved forward. One more thing that I want to mention is that now the LPS getting pretty close to the tree. So what you can actually do is, maybe we return to a location like this. Now, if we're getting really close to the tree, we're also moving in a direction where we might need to change 131, 132 is going to be over there. 131 needs to drag up somewhere over here to go through here. There's a high likelihood that it will affect the grading for the existing tree if we do that. So, if you can move the LPS over in this direction, I don't think it will make your swell or violate the parameters for the front or anything. So that's one thing that I would suggest revise before you move forward. Go ahead. So if you see the pink line, by moving the LPS, I'm actually shortening the center line, right? When I shorten the center line, my slope goes up. Yeah, so this will help you raise your center line slope a little bit. Yeah, but I think 2% it will be perfectly fine. We're raising it a little bit. Could be 2.5 in that case. Okay. Yeah, that's all I have for this one. Okay, yeah, revise garage, move LPS, move both LPSs actually. And then and then we can move forward. Okay. All right, clear. Okay, many questions here. So I have student 115 here. Believe this is Alice's. Okay, Alice, can you confirm that you're listening?
Hi, yeah.
Okay, good, great. Sounds good. It's the center line, the approximately correct spot. Same comment, the your HPS is not on the high side. So this is our natural slope there, where now this is our high side, right? And our HPS will be somewhere in this area. So now our HPS seems to be pretty low compared to this area. So HPS needs to be moved. This is actually where your LPS, one of the LPS needs to be. Okay, LPS, one of them would be somewhere here, and the other one would be somewhere over here. Your HPS would be in this area. All right, so that's the first comment about the center line. Slope, this is below 2%, so that doesn't work. Terms of garage, well, depends on your calculation of the garage. So here it would not be 130, it will be between 129 and 130. Looks like it's 129.4, around that elevation. And we do need to mark out where 15 feet is and calculate for that to be 10% and for this to be below 5%, okay? So most likely your garage FFE, it's not as high as 135. If you also have about a 60-foot driveway, you're at about 134.5. That's the highest that you can go, okay? So what I'm going to suggest, this first step moving forward is to mark out where your 15 feet is. Now I try a slope that is below 5. You can use 5, you can use 2, no, between 2 to 5, pick a number, and then measure the distance over here. Now use the 10% as the maximum slope to calculate what the elevation would be over here, what the elevation would be over there, and then you have your FFE, okay? That's the garage FFE. Once you have your garage FFE, you can drop that for 0.5 to find your HPS, specify where your LPS is, specify where the other LPS is, and recalculate the slope. So those are the steps that I would recommend that you do. About the legend, we have a cat room, so make sure you enter a cat room to ask Jonathan that question. Wood deck would not be included in the FFE. Ignore the wood deck when you do the grading, okay? You don't have to grade based on where your wood deck is and what that elevation is. It is a feature that is attached to the building. You can get your grading done, and then you can choose how to build your wood deck based on your house FFE. So what I'm trying to say is that don't let the wood deck and the boundary of that or the outline of it affect the grading of your center line for now, okay? Not for now. Any other questions, Alice?
No, I think you answered all of mine.
Okay, sounds good. All right, we'll move forward. Good, a lot of questions. Always like to see that. So the next one is page over here. Okay, good. Okay. So do I need to put spot elevations on the corners of the deck and porch? No, not for the deck. But yes, porch, because the porch is a concrete feature. You have to build it with the house and you have to prepare the foundation or the ground in order to build the porch. So the porch needs all corner elevations marked in the same manner as the building. But the wood deck is not. Okay, so the assignment requirements, the first 15 feet have to be a 5% slope away. Yes, we do need to add a garage door. It could be somewhere here, there. It could even be here. So that's your choice. Now, wherever you want to put it, you just want to make sure that area where you exit the garage to get into your yard, that area will be below 5%. An easier way to do it is you place the door along this way, because that's also where you design for the slope for from the corner to the HPS. And by restricting that to be below 5%, you automatically meet that criteria for the garage door. So it's easier to put it here. It's more difficult to put it there, because once you start your swell design, the slight slope can get steep, but it's still doable. It's doable. Does the driveway have to be 2 different slopes? Yes, the driveway would be 2 different slopes. Actually, the driveway would be the second portion of the driveway. The 2 sides will be at different slopes. So you actually have multiple different slopes there. Sure. So you worked out 7% for the lower portion of the driveway. That's totally fine. You just need to keep it below 10, right? So the 7% definitely works. Yeah, well, it's time to look at the overall grading now. Let me zoom into, make it a little bigger. Okay. All right. We did mention that let's end the swell somewhere over here. Yeah. So it does require you to recalculate it, but I don't think that it will be violating the slope requirement for the center line on the right side. Okay, the thing that I see right now is the house FFE and the garage FFE being exactly the same. The reason why that is problematic is that if that is the same, this is 134.5. And the ground over here would also be around 134.5, because you can't have a sudden drop of ground at the corner of the garage, right? Then the porch, well, meaning that the ground here will be 134.50, which is the same as the house, meaning you don't have enough positive drainage out of your house. So this will be 0.5 higher than your garage. If this is 134, in fact, your garage should be 134. Yeah. Okay. So that's 134, 131.70. Okay. Now 3. Looking pretty good overall. The first draft looks pretty good. Now we need to start becoming more precise. That means now the contours on your driveway would be straight, and they need to be measured, right? So how you measure it would be from so that slope will be different from that one. Does that make sense? Yes. So calculate each slope and then mark out where 131 or 132 should be, 131 should be, and 130 should be. So start with the 2 calculations of the slope of the size and identify where the locations for the integer contour tick marks are on either side of the driveway, and then connect them. Yeah, it should look like what you have here is diagonal, and they're not parallel because the slope is constantly changing in that surface, right? And that the surface is it's warped, so it should be diagonal from each other. Okay, so that's how you get to your the contours on the driveway. Yeah, the other thing is that once you figure that out, that would be changed based on wherever 130 hits this side of the slope, and the contours on the driveway would be straight. They would not be curved. Okay. One thing we do need to think about is whether or not you have enough slope from this portion to the closest point. You would want to avoid for the water to drain this way. Right now, if I look for the closest contour, it seems like water will drain that way, and that's exactly along your building. But in fact, you would want them to drain away from your building like that, right? So what you would need, it doesn't necessarily mean that you would need to change the design of these contours, but it does mean that you would need to add one more spot somewhere over here to make sure my corner does not drain along the size of my building, but instead it drains away from my building walls. Another thing you need to double check is whether or not the blue line is at a sufficient slope that is above 2%. Okay, so that's the only thing that I see that that needs verification forward. Okay. Once that's done, that needs to be changed, and then we start looking at the contour spacing on that side. Okay. Other than that, I think we're in a good shape. Yes. Yeah, it will merge. It will merge back to the existing contour faster than we have now, or sooner than what we have now. Yes. All right. Good work. Okay, keep moving. So next we have Rose. Okay, see you there. Okay, so we have those file elevations. We have garage 133.89 seems reasonable. Once we have that, we need to raise the house FFE to 0.5 above your garage. We have our HPS being 133.04. That could be a little. So let's measure. So Rose, you do need to measure these two blue lines. Make sure they're above 2%. Okay. And the corner elevation, building corner elevation is to be written outside of the buildings. They're not the same as what we had for terraces. The building corner elevation, they're the ground elevation. They need to be marked outside of the corner. We need to measure these two blue arrows, make sure the slope along these directions are above 2. And otherwise, yeah, my sense is that you might need to raise your garage FFE a tad in order to create above 2%. But it's just my hunch. okay? My feeling is that HPS seems a little low to be able to create a slope that's above 2 for the swell that is above. The second one, same thing. We would end the swell somewhere here for your LPS. Yeah, this side, I don't expect there to be a slope problem. Yeah, my guess is that your driveway is not as long as the other base maps. Because your driveway is not long, you will have a harder time to raise your FFE and then to create enough elevation difference for the swell above, okay? So it might mean that you need to raise that slope to 10% for one of the sides of the driveway. Okay. Yeah, otherwise, I think the process looks pretty good. Now you went through the right process. It's just some things needs to be adjusted before you can move forward. Okay, any other questions? We're good, okay. Next we have Daniel. Let's see, you here and the submission. Okay, good. Okay, pretty small. Let me try to zoom in. Should there be additional elevation on the sidewalk? Yeah, later on, we need to mark out the elevations at all the tangent points, wherever material change and where a slope change, but we're not at that stage yet. We need to work out the swell first, then we go into fine grading. Oh. So that seems reasonable, 8, 9, 10%. 133.19, 74. Good, all these are good. Should the second point of sight be the same or higher? That needs to be higher, okay. Let me read through all the comments and then I'll decide which ones to address first. Should we always have garage corner? For this one, yes. Because your HPS is closer to that corner. Can the slope for measurement be any slope? Not really. You need to find the shallow, the gentle slope to make sure that that's above 2. And then increase swell width, adjust side slope. Later on, just the side slope would be good. You don't need the width because the width actually changes depending on your design. So looking at big picture, okay, let me zoom back a little bit. And the swell somewhere here, that location looks pretty good. The HPS, if this is the shortest route, 139, that I don't suppose that will be a problem, but the problem is actually over here. If I'm looking at this corner, I need to make sure this corner can drain, right? If I have that corner and then I am drawing a line where that is the fastest way for water to drain, I need to measure my blue line and I need to make sure that the slope along that direction exceeds 2%. So I'm not exactly sure that's the case for here because, well, you do need to measure, okay? Measure that blue line and then if it's exceeding 2%, then that's okay. If it's not, then we have a problem. What we need to do is either to pull the center line closer to your building or you need to lower the HPS. Well, I am drawing the direction not exactly connecting to the HPS. that's, yeah, this direction is more reasonable because this looks like it's perpendicular to a center line. Okay, so measure your distance from the corner to your HPS. If I look at your driveway length and I look at, eyeball the distance, I would say it's probably, which means pull HPS closer to your building or lower the HPS. But if you lower your HPS, the center line for the swell above might drop below 2%. So I would say the safer option is to pull your HPS closer to that corner. Okay? Okay, so that's that. Yeah, otherwise, your driveway is calculated really well. The relationship between your FFE of the house and the garage is correct. So those are done very, very well. Let me clear and zoom into and explain this question. So the pink spot that you marked here should be determined by your driveway. Okay, so that spot, you need to calculate it based on the driveway, whatever slope that you specify for the 15% of 15 feet. That seems like this is 5%. If this is 5%, you measure from here to there, and that's what that spot should be. It should not be the same, okay? Of course, you could design your driveway for it to be the same. It's not beneficial because if we draw the cross section of the driveway, originally you were thinking, okay, I'm going 5% and then I'm going steeper, right? Now, if you want these two to be the same, you would need to go down and then do this and then go down. For these two to be the same, and at the same time, your driveway needs to drain, you kind of have to create a little bit of a front and go down and then go down again. So that's not a better design. Does it mean it's wrong? No, it's more complicated and it's not better. So let's not go that way. So we'll just create a driveway that is at 5% and then it will drop. And then the elevation here at the walkway would just be determined by whatever slope you have for your driveway. Okay. All right. So that's that question. Yes. Once you get into the fine grading stage, you will specify all the elevations for your walkway. And where should all the spots be, right? Here, you only need to specify one. You could mark it wherever you choose. You could mark it over here, but you can also mark it over there, but you don't have to duplicate it because they're the same spots. You just need to choose whether or not you mark it on your driveway or your walkway. One set will be enough. And then here we have a straight segment connecting with a curve. Wherever that intersection point is, you need spots. Same here, wherever that connection point is, you need spots. And then these two, okay? And here, it will be dependent on whether you take a step up to your porch and then into your house or not. Okay, we just need them to agree with each other and for us to be able to understand whether you have one step or you kind of connect to your porch, which is a little bit higher, and then you take one step into your house. Those numbers need to agree with each other, right? So depending on how you design your porch. Okay. Now, of course, the spot needs to be there. The corner needs to be there for the entrance. And then if we move down, we need a spot. We don't need a spot on top of the, you can have a Porsche FFE label. Does that make sense? You can have a Porsche FFE label that will tell us clearly whether you have a step up into your house or not. For this But these areas, those spots are for determining the ground elevation instead of the elevation on the porch, okay? All right, those are where the spots should be in front of the house. Your orientation of the text is the best if you could orient everything in the same direction. It does mean that you need to move them around, mask them as necessary, but the most straightforward and legible way, or the custom is to align the text for them to be parallel to the bottom of the page, because later on you will have a lot more complicated drawing. Buildings will be at different orientation. If you align them to the size of the building, it could get very messy. So the easiest way is to align them parallel to the bottom of the page. All right, that's that. Anything else that I forgot? Okay, cool. Well, definitely go to Jonathan for the viewport assistance there. Good. I'm quite pleased with your progress overall. Okay, we'll move ahead. So, okay, we have 119. I am not sure I know how to, my bad. The middle name is, okay, how they arranged the first and last name. My apologies. It was Jake. Okay. All right. Can you help me pronounce your name? Tyree. Okay, thank you. All right. Text orientation, size of the labels. They need to be bigger for me to read. So this is a pretty good, the FFE, the size of the FFE text is pretty good. The contour labels are a bit too small, okay? Contours, use the existing contour label as a reference without the parentheses, okay? All right, so let's take a look. We have 129.75. Based on where the spot is, I would say it's a roughly 129.5 in the middle, okay? Because we're using that 130 and 129 as reference points, and we're closer to 129 than we are to 130. So right now, the estimate should be around 129.45 or 4, okay? So that's that spot. Your driveway, your FFE equal to your garage FFE should be this number. Because you're driving through your garage, the entrance, the spots at the entrance should be the FFE of your garage. And now you increase that by 0.5 to 134.9, that's good. Okay, so this is good. And that should be lower, 0.5 lower, the same as the